5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
And with that, this is your Media Mosh Podcast. I am your host, Shane Beauregard, coming at you with all your news, reviews, and previews. I want to watch on your streamer services, your television, and your local theater. I hope everyone's having a great week out there. I have a special episode today. This is a show I should have reviewed quite some time ago, but there's no time like the present, and we will give you our Scream review. And I say "our" because today I'm usually joined by this guest in October, but we're coming at you in January, and that is the Mrs. from Argue With Myself. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Always a pleasure. I figured this show would kind of be up your alley. We are both Mike Flanagan fans from his movies and his previous shows. As everyone knows, you're also a horror aficionado, so we both happened to see Scream this weekend, which is a rarity that this would happen. So we figured, why not? We're going to go a little off the cuff, and I'll get into Midnight Mass in a little bit. But let's get into the new Scream right now, which is sitting at 76% critic score with an 84% audience score on Rotten Tomato. It was the #1 movie this weekend, knocking off Spider-Man No Way Home. I had no expectations for this movie. The bar was set low. I am a fan of this series. I will just lay that out there now. I found myself really enjoying this one more than I probably should have. It wasn't great. It didn't break any new ground. It tried to. So what were your overall thoughts with this movie?
I thought it was just okay. I give it like a 3 out of 5.
Okay, that's a little better than just okay.
I mean, I like seeing the original cast back together, like Sydney, Dewey, Gail. It was nice to see them back. Again, Neve Campbell, I don't think she ever ages. She looked fantastic.
She did, absolutely.
Obviously you're going to have a new crop of kids now. It's like I didn't really care for them. There wasn't really I felt I was drawn to a certain character. In the beginning of the movie, I was okay with the fact how they kind of keep referencing the old movies, and they were talking about Stab. That was okay with me at first. It didn't bother me. But then it's they did it through the whole movie. Towards the end, I was like, all right, enough now. I don't think I liked it as much as you did.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. The last act kind of fell apart for me a little bit when I found out the motives of the characters. I'm like, oh, come on, really? But like you said, they introduced some new characters. Jack Quaid plays Richie. You have Melissa Barraro playing Sam, and Jenna Ortega playing Tara. And this is where the movie kind of starts off. You get Tara getting attacked in the opening scene. You find out her older sister, Sam, who ends up moving away for some reason that we find out later. In this movie, and Richie plays her boyfriend. So, and of course, Tara has her friends, her cast of character friends, and that's where the Ghostface killer starts picking people off one by one. They get Dewey's help to try to figure out what's going on. So yeah, they do bring back the old cast. I did like that. They do reference so many times about legacy characters and new characters in a franchise. I liked some of the kills in this. Oh
yeah, I agree. It did have some good kill scenes. I will say that.
So I enjoyed it from that part. But again, when you get to the nitty gritty, because it's been a while since I saw the 4th Scream, and once we found out the motives from that cast of characters, I really thought it was pretty much the same thing. I thought the motive didn't make any sense to me whatsoever, outside of certain characters wanting 15 minutes of fame.
Right.
Is essentially what they're after. But again, I had a good time. This is directed by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin, who did Ready or Not before this, that was one of my favorite movies of the year, with Samara Weaving. I kind of hope this closes the book on the Scream franchise, though. I think this is enough. What do you think?
Yeah, we can end it. There's no need to go on. And if they did go on, they would probably... I don't know if they would or not, but if they did, I'm assuming they're going to try to go with those new cast of characters, or maybe they'll start with a whole new group altogether. But that's a far think I don't think you can stretch this anymore.
No, I
would say they should be done, but
right. I do think they closed a lot of loops perfectly, especially with the legacy characters. But like I said, I had a good time, better than I thought. Like you said, the references got old. But yeah, I was with it until like the last 20 minutes, and I was like, eh. So
Yeah.
you gave it a 3 out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm the same way. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. And if I have to, off the top of my head, kind of slip this in there, it's been a long time since I've seen any of the other Screams. I would say this is either right behind the original or right behind the second one. Definitely, I enjoyed it more than the third one. And for me, the fourth one was just bleh.
Yeah, the third and the fourth, I really don't even remember. I'd have to go back and rewatch them.
They all blend together.
Yeah. I mean, when the first one came out, I mean, that was just... And for, like, your main character, Drew Barrymore, to get killed off in the beginning, it was just, like, no one saw that coming. So it was just like, what? Like, oh, my God. And it captivated you.
Right.
Now... Okay, you're done.
Right.
Like I said, it was good to to watch them all again. It was good to see that they were coming back. I think I just expected something a little different from it, or a little more.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So we both agree.
Like more put to the. I don't know. I think the plot was definitely lacking.
It was paper thin.
It was just kind of the same thing, the same story, and then they just kept making the references to the old movies. And it's like they could taken more time to have more of a story.
Right. The story was paper thin. Again, especially when you find out who's behind everything and why they're doing it. It's like, all right, come on.
Yeah.
Enjoyable experience. So 3 out of 5.
Chris, by the way, gives it a 2.5.
Hey, that's a little better than I thought he was going to give it.
Yeah, he said 2.5.
Yeah, seriously. I thought that's a little better than I thought. That's good. All right, so let's move on to the main event. And that is Midnight Mass, which came out last September. And for some reason, I put this on the back burner for a long time. I am a fan of Michael Flanagan. The first movie I can remember seeing on Netflix was Hush. And then he really had me with The Haunting of Hill House. So recently, I fell ill over a course of a weekend. And I figured, why not? Let me start this show. I actually watched this entire show in one day. That is 7
episodes. Really?
Yes, that is 7 episodes. At a staggering 7.5 hours. So when I go back and I try to put the show together, I've come to find out from a personal take that shows are easier to review after every episode is released, and then you can go back and tie everything back together. Especially a show that is this long. It just was like a Herculean effort to make it through all 7 episodes in one day. And that's not to say I didn't enjoy it, because for the most part, I really did. So let's get into it. Right now, this is sitting at 86% critic score with a 76% audience score. My personal feeling is you're going to get people who really like the show, and you're going to get people who just don't like it at all. Now, off the bat, I don't really consider this a horror show. I don't.
No, it seemed like more of like a mystery type drama.
Right. It has a couple horror elements in there. But when you go and look this show up, it's going to talk a lot about it being like really frightening or one of the top horror shows, and not really. But let me give you a quick description of this, and this comes straight from IMDb. An isolated island community experiences miraculous events and frightening omens after the arrival of a charismatic and mysterious young priest arrives. That is pretty much the setup of this show.
Yep.
Let me go over the cast real quick. You have, and what I like about Mike Flanagan, if you notice, he uses a lot of the same actors and actresses.
Yes, which I do like that.
In his movies.
I do like that, but I don't know why. I don't know. It's nice to just watch one of his films and be like, oh, she was in this one, or he was in this one. It's like they're a cast of people that you don't see often, so it's not like, oh, we're using this one again. Like, I don't get sick of these people.
Right, I'm the same way.
Some actors or actresses, I think, are just like you see some of them too much, and it's just like, like Robert De Niro's in this one too,
Right.
Like he's in every film, I feel. It's like I'm just getting sick of it.
Right.
There's so many other people they could be using.
So let's go over some of what I feel like are the key cast members, and there is a lot of them to cover, but you have Zach Gilford playing Riley. He's the first character you're introduced to in this show. Kate Siegel plays Aaron. You have, I'm going to totally butcher these names, Hamish Linklater, who plays Father Paul. One of my personal favorites Annabeth Gesh playing Dr. Sarah, Rachel Colley playing Sheriff Hassan, Samantha Slan playing Bev, which we'll get into her, and of course you have the standby Henry Thomas who plays Riley's father. Yeah. So, like I said, you get introduced to Riley off the bat. He's involved in a DWI. At the very beginning of the show, he serves jail time and goes back to his hometown, which is Crockett Island, which is off the coast. Now, it doesn't say what coast this is off of, but in my heart, I feel like it's the West Coast somewhere. Like, I'm feeling like it's off the state of Washington somewhere. That's the feel.
I can see that, like an Oregon
right
feel to it.
That's the feel I got to
Vancouver,
it.
Vancouver, Washington feel.
Population 127 of this town. In this town, I thought what Flanagan did really well is this town is its own character. So it's weathered, it's beat up, but the few people who still live there are very proud of what they do. A lot of them are just fishermen. And it feels like a punishment that Riley has to come back to his hometown. So we get him trying to integrate back into the town. The underlying tones or motives and themes of this show is a lot. I felt like it deals with grief, faith, redemption, addiction, and organized religion, which is a lot. it's a lot in one. It's a lot to cover. But again, it's a very, very slow burn. You have the few faithful who show up to Mass every day, and there's usually a handful of these people. And they're all waiting for the new father to come onto the island from the boat. He shows up late, and all of a sudden, during Mass Sunday, he just kind of walks in and performs Mass, and everyone's kind of surprised. And he is a young, charismatic guy, and he's trying to build back the congregation. So there's a lot going on. So just before I start talking even more, what were your impressions of the show? What'd you like about it? And we'll break down some characters here in a minute, because I think that'll be a little easier to tackle.
Yeah, I think what really drew me in is how different Father Paul was. There was just something about him, even his look and how he just kind of carried himself and how he talked, that was just different to me. I was like, oh, this is different. And and it was the fact that he kind of came in new, but he was kind of replacing the old priest that they were used to, and we have no idea what happened to the guy, but something good did not happen to him. Something bad happened, you don't know what. So it just right away, there's this big mystery I felt around the odd stuff that was happening in the town, and then with this new father coming on board. Right. So right away, they kind of grasped me into all these different little mysteries of what's going on.
Well, all we did know at the time is Monsieur Pruitt went on a mission trip, apparently, in Israel, I believe. And he came back sick, or he came back ill, so Father Paul takes his place. And again, it's been a while since I've really thought about the show. But again, he's starting to attract a couple more people. And it took me, I want to say, the end of the second episode to kind of really what happens, because Father Paul goes into the confessional booth and he's kind of talking about how he's lying to his congregation, how he needs to lie to these people, and we're at this point, I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? And he's actually telling the story of Pruitt. And then I think it was the end of the second or third episode, we kind of find out the big kind of reveal for that. All along, you get Riley, you get his dad, played by Henry Thomas. Katie, he runs into Katie Segal, which they grew up on the island, who's now a teacher, and she's pregnant. Annabelle Gesh is the town doctor, and she's there taking care of her mother, who has dementia, slowly falling apart. You have the sheriff, who is Islam, which is a big theme in this show as well. And he has a nice little backstory on why he's in this small town, because he did work in the big city. So I did like them bringing him into the fold. And, of course, you have your villain. And I will say, Samantha Slan playing Bev, I wanted to punch that bitch in her face every damn episode. And she is like the number 2 in the church. She's like the... the
right-hand person
the right-hand person, just the do-gooder of the town. No one likes her, by the way.
Oh, no. Nope.
So, man.
Not that it's giving much away, but it's she killed that guy's dog.
Yes, there's a town drunk.
In town, I was like, oh, God. It's and you had to go to the dog.
Right, and he has a backstory where he ended up shooting this young girl in the back, and she's
paralyzed.
Yes.
She's in the wheelchair. She can't walk.
She's in a wheelchair. So let's get into what kind of brings people this new fervor of faith and religion into the small town. It is the first miracle that we see, that I believe we see, is when Father Paul, during communion, like puts the wine or the blood of Christ out there and makes the girl kind of stand up out of her wheelchair to come get it.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, yeah. And everyone's like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And she does. Yeah. All of a sudden, she can walk, which blew everyone away. From that moment on, you started seeing the congregation get fuller and fuller. In the meantime, Father Paul's having a connection with Annabelle Gesch's mom. Like, he's going to her house, giving communion. Which, listen, I kind of grew up Catholic, but I didn't realize they did communion every day. It seemed like they were doing communion every day.
Yep, I grew up Catholic, and I had to go to church every Sunday. That's the only time I would get communion. I wasn't eating it every day.
Right. And I want to say,
my grandparents were pretty heavy in the church.
And I want to say, early on, you get a little clue, because the two altar boys, one of them goes back into the room, and he sees Father Paul doing something to the flask that has the wine in it, and we don't really know what he's hiding there. So, do you want to talk about the big reveal? Because this is like the meat of the story here. You
want to go into that right now? Go for it. You go.
All right.
Take it.
Because again, it's
that's the other thing. I will say is that I think it's kind of like, or maybe I'm forgetting because it has been a while. But so is it ever it's something that's in this wine that they're all drinking? Because little things keep happening to everybody now in the town. Like who played the mother who had the Alzheimer's, but she starts aging, going back. She starts getting younger. Yeah,
she starts Benjamin Buttoning.
She does a Benjamin Button, which I thought was really cool. I was like, as it's going on, I'm like, this woman's getting younger.
They do.
So little by little, everything keeps happening to certain people in that town that have something wrong with them.
They do the same thing with Riley's mother. That's the second person I noticed. Remember, she didn't have to wear her glasses all of a sudden, and it seemed like every episode.
I forgot about that.
It seemed like every episode she looked a little younger and younger. And Riley's father's back didn't hurt anymore, and he's able to like work on his boat without the help. And then we get Annabelle Gesch's mother getting substantially younger, walking around the house. So these are just the little miracles that are going around the town. Mm-hmm. And it's through Father Paul's backstory on Monsignor Pruitt what happens as he somehow finds himself in this cave during a sandstorm. Now, this is the horror part of the, I guess, the show. We get introduced to some angel of God in this cave, a.k.a. a vampire.
Which was a little creepy looking, by the way.
Right. It kind of reminded me of the Jeepers Creepers, almost.
Yes. Yep. When I saw it, I was like, ooh, that's a little, especially when you start to see it from afar a bit, and you see like that dark shadow. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And like, that's a little creepy. But yes, I'm thinking to myself, where have I seen that before?
It was the wings, right? It's the wings that did it.
Yep.
So we get introduced to this, again, we'll call him the angel of God, who ends up biting Pruitt, and come to find out, the big twist is Pruitt is Father Paul, but again, Benjamin Buttoned.
Benjamin Buttoned, yep.
So Father Paul, when he comes to the town, ends up bringing this angel of God with him. And we get little hints of him, like when they have the first big storm, when all the dead cats wash up on shore.
Yeah.
We get glimpses of him here and there. So that is what's in the flask with the wine, is his blood, which Father Paul takes every day, and he's been passing on to his congregation. Hence, that's why they're, all getting better and healthy. I think that was episode 3 when we got that big reveal. It was like 3 hours into this thing when we found out that is what was going on.
Yeah, some episodes were a little slower than others. I'll say that. But I overall liked it.
Right.
I would give it a 7 out of 10.
I'm kind of there with you. Like I said, and this show kind of focuses on the relationship with Riley's trying to redeem himself from taking a life, because every morning before he or every night before he goes to bed, he sees her in his room, and he's trying to make a reconnection with Erin, who we find out she loses her baby pregnancy, which is like a weird, I don't want to say cool, but it was a weird episode. So we're trying to figure out what happened with her, but it's the connection with Riley and Erin, that story of redemption and addiction with him, because I really was drawn to that Riley character, and we'll get into like towards like the last episode where I'm like, okay, whatever. But so we're getting ready for Easter. This is where this kind of show ends, and we start to get the plot of like what is going on with this town. And it kind of reminded me of parts of The Mist, where you had one group of people that thought one way, and you had another group of people who were just fucking crazy. Yeah, they were just crazy.
It's a very good example. Yep.
So you get these people who are so into this faith and through these miracles firmly believe, and they're trying to get the whole town to come to this Easter midnight mass where Father Paul is talking about like it's going to be the final, whatever plan he has. And you get Annabelle, Gash, Riley, Aaron, and the sheriff, I believe, trying to stop what's going on. And I kind of forget who discovers what. Like, there is a couple characters who were suspicious of what was going on. Like, Riley never took communion because he felt like he didn't deserve communion.
What wasn't it? The 3 women?
It was.
I think it was 3 women. The nurse. It was Annabelle there. The nurse who was caring for her sick mother.
Yes.
God, I can't remember the other 2, but I remember being the 3 main women.
Right. And they
were in it.
And they try to get the sheriff to help, but he didn't help, and he had a really good reason why he didn't. And you also get his son, who's wants to try to go to church as well, and his father's like, you get that whole Christian Islam religious aspect to it too, because his father's reluctant to let his son try this new religion out. So there's a lot of heavy themes in here, and it seems like we all are over the place, but we are all just all over the place here. But yeah, you get the last couple episodes in here when we find out what is going on. What I found weird is this. When I thought about this show, because you get like this 3rd episode in where Father Paul's not coming out in the daylight anymore.
Right.
But correct me if I'm wrong. During the first couple episodes, didn't he do mass in the afternoon? Or was it just cloudy all the time? I could have swore he was out and about.
No, I think it was still like morning, early afternoon. And then he started, doing the mass at night because he couldn't come out during the day.
Right. And, Bev, of course, and she had a couple of disciples like that were just making up excuses for him. And then we get the scene where the old drunk guy who started going to rehab with Riley goes to his cabin, and that was a weird scene. You get Father Paul kind of rendering him unconscious, and he is bleeding out, and that's I think that's the first scene you really see where like this dude's kind of messed up.
This dude's messed up.
He's kind of messed up. So, and I was really rooting for Riley, and this is where I'd say this kind of took maybe a wrong turn for me. I was really hoping he would stop everything. But that scene where he walks back into the rec center when the angel of God comes in there and he's refilling the thing, and Riley comes in there and Father Paul gives him this look like, oh shit, like you shouldn't have come back here.
Like you saw him and you shouldn't have.
Yeah. And then he gets taken out for an episode or so, and I kind of that part kind of got me upset because I was really getting into the Riley character and his story arc.
Yeah, me too. I was like, wow, they're really just gonna take this guy out like that.
I know. It's like, boom. We'll get to his last scene with Aaron in a minute because I have some commentary on that as well.
Because obviously after that had happened, he also could not go out during the day.
Correct.
And so no one was seeing him, and no one understood why until, he finally explains himself to the girl before the sun rises.
Right. So
on the boat.
Before we get to like the last episode, I kept thinking like, what is the vampire? Because he's a vampire. What is the vampire's motive? Like, he could have killed everyone on that island without going through all this theatrics in his agreement with Father Paul. He didn't really need Father Paul at this point. Was it just to turn everyone?
Question. I never thought about it until you just said it. Because it's like, what was his motive?
Was it just to get more vampires out? Like, just make sure his race or his species? Maybe
because it was such a like you said, like maybe because it's such a small town, he wanted to try to take over all those people and get because you only had 127.
127.
So. Yeah, maybe they were going to try to take them all over and have them all be vampires, and he can start taking over more.
Because really, throughout this whole show, he only attacks one or two people, really. The kid, that drug dealer at the beginning.
It was just the two, I think.
Yeah, the drug dealer at the beginning where he like makes him go in that house and he attacks him.
Yep.
And then Riley towards the end.
And Riley. Yep.
That was it. So I thought I was disappointed we didn't get to see a little bit more.
People taken out.
Yeah, a little bit more of that character, and I kept thinking, why is he hiding in the bushes and the houses and not just attacking more people? Because really, I don't know. It just the thought hit me like he didn't really need that arrangement, and that was a weird scene when he walks into the church with the priest cloak on and all that stuff. Like it was just that was just an odd scene. Because you agree, he was a vampire. He wasn't an angel of God. All right, so again, as we just get to this last episode, and so we get this side cast of characters who are trying to stop this final communion, and their plan is simple. They're going to make everyone drink the juice, the poison juice, right? But they've been drinking the blood beforehand.
They're going to drink the Jesus juice.
They're going to drink the Jesus juice and get resurrected, because that was another miracle that was performed earlier in the show as well. And that was Father Paul who came back as well. So that's the big plan. They're going to Jesus juice everybody, and everyone's going to get resurrected and be vampires. And you have this small cast of characters trying to stop them, kill them, so they don't leave the island and infect anymore. So what do you think about that whole last scene, last episode, when you find out what was really going on? Did you think, because when it started going on, I thought to myself, this is going to be a show where no one survives.
Oh, yeah, I thought that was happening too, because they were really trying to get everybody in that church, lock them all up, drink the juice, and kind of have everybody turn. But then you had, like you said, like the two sides going of, oh, yeah, like we could live forever and be eternal. This is going to be awesome. This is going to be great. But then you had the other people who are like, no, wait a minute. This isn't right. This isn't what's going to happen. Like, you know, you have half the people trying to stop other people. And then you had chaos break out.
Right. And when the chaos broke out, I think that's when you saw people that were, I don't want to say hypnotized or just really drank the juice of the faith. They realized, hey, this isn't right. You found like Riley's parents connecting better at a better level.
Yeah,
you know?
I know.
And you had these two kids, Riley's brother and the wheelchair girl. I don't know her name.
Yeah.
I think they're the only survivors because they were trying to get them to safety. But everyone else who turned realized they kind of like messed up. The other big reveal we get in this last episode is as Annabelle Gesh is trying to burn down the church, she gets shot.
Yep.
And come to find out, she was Father Paul's daughter.
Yes. Yep.
And her...
That I didn't see coming.
No, I didn't see that coming at all. But it makes sense because Father Paul kept coming back to the house and giving her mom the communion. And there's a scene where she saw a young Father Paul in the mirror and it kind of freaked her out.
Yeah, you knew there was some kind of connection between Father Paul and the mother.
Right.
But you didn't know what.
Right.
Because he did. He kept going back. And the way he was talking to her, too, I'm like, he's talking to her like he knows her.
Right. And then, so you get Riley's last scene with Aaron. Again, they had some really good moments in this show throughout. There's one scene with them that I'm like, I had to fast forward through a little bit, and that's when they were talking about what death represents to each of them. I thought that was a little bit of a long-winded scene.
It was long-winded.
So Riley gets her out to this boat in this middle of the ocean, and she's thinking that he's going to attack her or do something. And pretty much he's sacrificing himself and showing her, because, again, he's like, no one's going to believe what happened. And it happens in front of her, and she freaks out, goes back to the shore, and that's when she gets Annabelle Gesh and everyone else to try to help. And this is one of those moments where she even mentioned the last thing he said to her was run. Did she run? No.
No.
No. So you have mass chaos. You have fires breaking out. You got more than half the island in vampires. And the undoing...
Complete anarchy at the end
on
that island.
But what I did love about the end is who was responsible for no one surviving, really. It was Bev. She's the one who told her disciples to burn it all down. Yep. And as the night's going on, they're finding out they don't have a place to hide anymore. since
Right.
the
Yep.
rec center was
They
the
had nowhere
last.
to go.
Right, the rec center was the last place to burn up. All the boats were destroyed. The church was gone, and that's when you had the whole island just come to a realization of what is going to happen once the sun comes up, and that led to some very touching moments. The sheriff and his son, practicing their religion on the beach. And I did like how they juxtaposed that next to Bev, who was freaking out and was supposed to be the most faithful of all. And she was trying to make that last ditch effort to like bury a.
Oh yeah, she was. Yeah.
She was trying to put her head in the sand.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, and it just made me realize, like, she came off as like the most faithful person. She had the least faith of everyone in this show. You had Aaron, which I found this kind of odd. The vampire goes after her, and as he's feasting on her neck, she's like just slowly just making slits in his wings, and he kind of like,
oh, that's right, yes,
yeah, and he kind of shrugs it off a little bit, but then he doesn't know enough to like, hey, she's dicing up my wings here.
Dicing up my wings.
Right. And then he finally like realizes, because the sun's coming up, and he makes a break for it. Now we never see if he makes it. The two kids in the boat at that time are like, do you think he's gonna make it? And the girl's like, well, he has 137 miles to go in 30 minutes. So my assumption is he does not make it.
No.
The whole town goes up except for the two kids that do.
The two kids
do survive.
They're sitting on a boat,
right,
in the middle of the ocean.
Right.
Yeah.
But overall, it's an intriguing show. It's one that I don't think I will have to revisit. I think one time through is good enough for me.
Yeah, me as well. And again, I say I liked it because for me, I was coming off watching The Haunting of Bly Manor, which I did not care for.
Okay.
So for me, I felt Midnight Mass, he redeemed himself a bit. I mean, because Bly Manor to me, it was one of those shows where it's like you came off The Haunting of Hill House, which I thought was fantastic.
Right.
Right? Did I get that one right? The Haunting of Hill House?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. And then when I went to Bly Manor, I think I was on such a high with the other one that to go to Bly Manor, I was like, it was just, that was another like really long drawn out one that I was just like, what is going on? But yeah, I was still intrigued to keep watching. So I was just like, well, what's going to happen? I need to know what's going to happen. And I kept waiting, thinking more was going to happen. So for me, I really liked Midnight Mass because like you said, there was this mystery. I was like, ooh, like what's going on? It didn't drag out with there was a lot going on. Where Bly Manor, it was just too dragged out, and I was kind of like, what is going on? And then you're confused, and they're going back and forth in time. I didn't care for it, so I felt Midnight Mass, he redeemed himself.
I do too. Again, with Midnight Mass, it's like a very slow watch, and then at the end of the episode, they give you something. You're like, oh shit, where's this going to lead to? And then it leads to another really slow episode to the very end of that one, and you're like, oh shit, okay. So you got to keep, Again, a lot of I thought this was just a heavy themed show that he tackled with. Again, it's hard to tackle organized religion, but I felt like he was talking more about faith and redemption than he was actually about like the Catholic Church and like how they practice and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree.
And of course, with grief in here as well. I just felt like the first character that we were introduced to is Riley. I just felt like his character never paid off. I know he had his moment in the boat because it did. His definition of what death was to him really did come full circle in that boat. You see his last scene with that girl who's not mangled anymore, and you get his redemption story. I just thought they would take his redemption story in a different angle.
Yeah, I didn't expect him to go the way he did.
Right,
how that all ended up for him. I think I don't know. I was expecting him to at least go to the end.
Right, out of left field. But I will say, and getting back to what you said in the cast, I thought the cast was just fantastic for like lesser known, I don't want to say lesser known actors and actresses, but yeah, for the most part.
They're not your A-listers, but it's like, oh, he looks familiar. I've seen him in something. I've seen her in something. And the fact that he uses them again within his movies or his miniseries, I think is great. Right.
So the cast really, even if you don't know them, you'd be like, oh, I recognize that person from so-and-so. Yeah. But they're just not mainstream. Like, I looked up the the actress who played Bev. And primarily, she's a TV actress show like Grey's Anatomy and Criminal Intent.
Oh, okay.
Things of that nature. And she was in The House, The Haunting of Hill House, but I forgot what character she plays, but she's also in that. So, like I said, I would recommend the show, especially if you're a Mike Flanagan fan. Just my recommendation is don't watch it all in one day. To me, this is like a one episode per night, or even a one episode per week, and let everything kind of sit in so you can really think about what is going on with all the themes here. I think that's the more enjoyable route to go. I would agree with the critics more so than the audience. I gave it a 4.0 out of 5 for me with Midnight Mass.
Okay.
And you gave it about the same. You gave it like a 7 out of 10, right?
Yeah, I said a 7 out of 10. So, yeah.
All right, so let's wrap this up. Now, before we wrap this up, Mike Flanagan is, I guess, his new show. He is working on a new show for Netflix as we speak. I forget the name of it, but it does have a lot of, if you want to have Chris look that up real quick, it does have a lot of the cast of his previous shows.
Oh, good. I didn't know he was working on something else. I'm glad he is.
Like the actor who plays Riley, again, is like the main star in this upcoming one.
Because now who's his wife plays in these, doesn't she?
Katie Seagal, right? Siegel?
Oh, okay, that's her. Yep, that's his wife, right?
And let me tell you something. He definitely overkicked his damn coverage.
Right, when I saw what he actually looked like, and I'm thinking, wow, he married that? Like, he
overkicked his coverage. It's okay to say.
Yep. Well, hey, she chose wisely, I guess.
She did.
She's got a steady paycheck.
But you can definitely tell Flanagan is uber influenced by Stephen King, because this did remind me of a Stephen King kind of novel turned into a TV show.
Okay, I think I have the name of the next show he's working on. The Fall of the House of Usher.
Yep, there you go. Yep.
Is that it?
That's it. Very good. And we'll keep you posted on when that show is going to come out on Netflix, I'm sure. So I thought it'd be fun just to give everyone a top 5. I have my own list, and we'll go tit for tat. Yep. So let's start off, and let's hear your number 5 Mike Flanagan project.
I'll admit, though, so I didn't. This is in no chronological order for me.
No problem.
I'm just going to give you my top 5 from him.
Okay, give me one, then I'll go 1. So we'll go 1, 1, 1, 1.
Okay, yeah. So I have Hush.
Okay. I have Hush on here as well. That was the first one that I saw.
Yeah, I think me too.
Who we got introduced to his wife, because his wife was the main character in that one as well.
Mm-hmm.
My number 5 is 2013's Oculus with Katie Sackhoff is the main character in there. And I totally forgot you have Karen Gillard playing her daughter in that movie as well. So that is my number 5.
Okay, you know what? I want to say Oculus is my honorable mention because I had it on here and I took it off.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. So I did have it on there, but I ended up taking it off.
Okay.
Because I replaced it with Before I Wake.
Ooh, okay. Very good. And
I really like that one. I actually just caught it last night for the first time. Okay,
that's what you're telling me. That's in my list somewhere. My number 4 is one of his most recent ones, and that's 2019's Dr. Sleep, which is the sequel to oh my God.
Shining?
The Shining, yes. Which I know a lot of people, all I'm going to say is it was a very divisive movie. People really liked it, or they didn't like it. I thought for what the monumental task of making a sequel to, or filming the sequel to The Shining, I thought he pulled off some really good things. So that was my number 4 is Dr. Sleep.
Yeah, I fell in the category of I was not a fan of Dr. Sleep.
Okay, I get it. I totally get it.
I do have on here, again, mine's not in order, but I have Gerald's Game.
Ooh, okay. That would be my honorable mention.
Okay.
Surprisingly, I mean, you think any movie with Carla Gugino tied up to a bed half naked would be really high on my list, and for the most part it would. But I don't know, this movie I did enjoy it. It just kind of didn't work for me towards the end. But I will admit, I had a little problem with the ending when you see Yeah.
I don't even know what you want to call that person. I think it went too far. We didn't need to see any more of him.
Right.
We didn't need to go to court. That didn't need to happen. When you saw him like kind of hiding in the dark in the bedroom and you think you're seeing a figure, but you don't know if you're seeing a figure, that was good. That was creepy. You didn't need to go we didn't need to see him in the daylight. And
Right.
yeah, so the ending is just where I'm like, we didn't need that. But right. I do feel it's a good movie.
It is a good movie. My honorable mention. My number 3, and you've already talked about this movie, is Before I Wake. That is my number 3 movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's
really good.
One of the better hidden gems on Netflix.
Yes.
Hey, who's the mom in that? Was that Kate Bosworth, right? It was Thomas Jane. Kate Bosworth, okay. So that's my number 3. So we're getting down to it now. I kind of figure what you're going to say next.
Which I mentioned earlier, too, The Haunting of Hill House I have.
There you go. That is my number 2, and my number 1 would be Hush. So that's where I have it. But we're in the same ballpark. Outside of honorable mentions, everything else pretty much syncs up. Yeah.
So really, if anyone has not seen any of those, you need to.
Yes.
They're good watches.
Absolutely.
They're on Netflix.
All on Netflix. All great watches. Except for maybe Dr. Sleep. But we'll save that for another time.
Well, that was just for me. Like you said, there's people who either loved it or hated it.
Right.
And I think, Chris, did you like it?
There were some good elements, but overall, it was all right.
Okay.
Yeah, he's just kind of in the middle. He said it was all right.
Right, I got you. Well, that is our Mike Flanagan list. That was our incoherent ramblings-ons about 7 hours and 30 minutes of Midnight Mass. And then the 5th and final installment of Scream, which we all recommended everyone should watch. They're all good watches. So I know, Melanie, you usually don't pop onto Arguing Myself until October.
No, yeah, I don't.
You don't. So anything you want to plug while you're here?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
No
I appreciate
problem.
It.
When something horror comes up, we'll try to have you back on again. So I do appreciate it.
Sounds good.
In the meantime, people, I finally got back on the Apple Podcast Store. I figured it out with my caveman abilities. I am back on there, so go ahead and download me from your Apple Podcast Store. Share me. Let me into your friend's life. They'll probably thank you for it. Maybe. So until then, get caught up in the mosh.